Have you ever stopped to wonder why our earliest years leave such deep imprints even when we can't fully recall them? Why some people, no matter how far they go, always seem to carry a quiet heaviness in their voice, their choices, the way they move through life. That weight has a name, though it's rarely spoken aloud. It's the tragedy of a ruined childhood. Not a tragedy of one single event, but of the soil in which a person was meant to grow dry, cracked, and unyielding. Childhood should be a sanctuary, a garden where safety and love let a person reach toward the light. But for too many, it isn't. Instead, it becomes a battlefield of unmet needs. Silence where comfort should have been. Absence where presence was needed. And what's strange is we often don't realize until much later how those missing pieces still shape us. Science tells us something we often overlook. A child's brain develops most rapidly in the first years. Neural pathways form based on how that child is treated, how they're spoken to, held, soothed, or ignored. When a child's needs go unmet, their mind adapts. But those adaptations come at a cost, a constant state of alertness, trouble trusting others, an inner voice that whispers, "You are not enough." These aren't just feelings, they're biological imprints. Think how fragile a child truly is. They don't choose where they're born. They don't choose their parents' temperament. They don't choose the chaos or calm they inherit. Yet these uncontrollable circumstances become the lens through which they see the world. A ruined childhood often means carrying someone else's unfinished wounds. It means inheriting storms that were never yours to begin with. But let's pause here. This isn't about painting every difficult start as a life sentence. Humans are resilient, that's undeniable. Yet resilience has its limits. Imagine planting a young sapling in toxic soil and asking it to grow tall. Some trees still bend toward the sun, but many will carry twists in their trunks, scars in their branches, roots that never felt stable. That's what a ruined childhood looks like in human form. People who grow up but never fully feel grown inside. One of the most overlooked parts of this tragedy is how invisible it is. On the surface, someone may seem perfectly functional. They laugh at the right moments. They show up to work on time. They may even build a family. But inside, the echoes of their childhood live on. Studies in developmental psychology show that children who lacked consistent emotional nurturing often become adults with what researchers call insecure attachment. That means even in adulthood, relationships feel like walking on shifting ground. Trust feels fragile, intimacy feels unsafe, and worst of all, they often blame themselves, not realizing the root lies in experiences far beyond their control. It's painful to imagine, but many adults struggle self-doubt, constant people-pleasing, trouble setting boundaries. The relentless chase for external validation often trace back to those early years. When a child learns that love must be earned, they spend a lifetime trying to earn what should have been freely given. When a child learns their feelings are a burden, they grow into adults who silence themselves, even when silence hurts. And yet, here's the paradox. Most people with ruined childhoods minimize their own pain. They say, "It wasn't that bad. Others had it worse." They tell themselves they're overreacting, that the past should stay in the past. But the body keeps the score in quiet ways. In the tightness in your chest when someone raises their voice. In the restlessness you feel in moments of calm because peace feels unfamiliar. In the suspicion that arises when you're shown kindness. To truly grasp the tragedy of a ruined childhood, you have to understand the gap it creates, the gap between what could have been and what was. It's not about one moment of pain, but the accumulation of small absences. The bedtime stories never told, the comfort never offered, the encouragement never spoken. These absences become shadows that follow you into adulthood. Part 3. The brain, the blueprint, and the path forward. But why revisit what can't be changed? Because acknowledging it is the first step toward freedom. To pretend childhood doesn't matter is to deny the roots of human development. Neuroscience shows that early experiences literally shape the brain's architecture. Trauma, neglect, instability, they wire the brain for survival, not growth. And unless we understand this, we risk mistaking survival strategies for personality. Consider this: a child raised in constant unpredictability learns to read the smallest signals, a tone of voice, a slammed door, a shift in expression. They become hypervigilant, always scanning for danger. As adults, that vigilance may look like anxiety, overthinking, or an inability to relax. It's not that they're naturally anxious. Their nervous system was trained in a world that never felt safe. Another child, raised unseen, learns that asking brings no reward. As an adult, they may become passive, unable to ask for help, feeling undeserving of care. Not because they're weak, but because as children, their needs were ignored. The tragedy isn't just that childhood wounds exist, it's that they echo in silence for years, often unnoticed. They become stories people live out unconsciously, repeating cycles, sabotaging opportunities, fearing love while craving it deeply. And unless brought into awareness, these echoes can span generations. But we must be careful. It's easy to see ruined childhoods as permanent prisons. They are not. They're heavy, yes, but that heaviness can be carried differently, once understood. The same research that shows how trauma shapes the brain also reveals something else: neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to adapt, rewire, and heal even in adulthood. That means the tragedy of a ruined childhood is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a lifelong task to reclaim what was lost, to rebuild what was broken, to become the parent to yourself you never had. Still, the sadness remains. No matter how much healing happens, there's always that haunting sense of what might have been. The laughter never heard, the safety never felt, the innocence lost too soon. Healing can soften the edges, but it can't erase the fact a childhood once ruined cannot be relived. And perhaps that's why those who carry these burdens often develop such depth. They become quiet philosophers, asking questions others avoid. They develop empathy that runs bone deep because they know the cost of its absence. They struggle, yes, but within that struggle lies an extraordinary sensitivity to life. The tragedy of a ruined childhood is that it steals the beginning a person deserved. But the triumph, if we can call it that, is that many rise from those ashes with a hard-won wisdom. A wisdom that whispers, pain may shape you, but it doesn't have to define you. There's something almost invisible about childhood pain. If you break your arm as a child, people rush to help. They see the cast, they sign it, they remember your struggle. But when your spirit breaks, when love is scarce, kindness absent, safety conditional, there's no cast for the soul. No visible marker says, this child is hurting. And because it's invisible, it often goes unacknowledged, even by the child themselves. What makes this so piercing is that children normalize what they live. A child growing up in neglect doesn't say, I am neglected. They think, this must be what life is. A child raised in chaos doesn't name the chaos they adapt. They build themselves around instability, not realizing how abnormal it was. Then, in adulthood, they're bewildered. Why do they struggle with things others find easy? That's why so many adults with ruined childhoods carry silent guilt. They ask, why can't I be more confident? Why can't I trust? Why does love scare me? They don't realize they're following an old blueprint, a map drawn by experiences they never chose. And when you follow the wrong map long enough, you feel lost in every direction. Psychologists often speak of the inner child, not a mystical idea, but the collection of early memories, feelings, and lessons that live inside every adult. When that inner child is ignored, mocked, or burdened too soon, they freeze at the age the pain happened. Imagine being 35, but carrying inside a 7-year-old who still believes they're unworthy of love. That's the silent weight so many carry unseen, unspoken. The tragedy extends beyond the self. It seeps into relationships, careers, parenting. Someone with a ruined childhood may repeat patterns they swore they'd escape, not because they want to, but because the past quietly scripts the present. Research supports this painful truth. Studies on adverse childhood experiences a CE show the more difficulty a child endures, the more likely they are to struggle with emotional regulation, physical health, even lifespan. What happens in childhood reverberates across a lifetime, and yet society often overlooks it, preferring to believe children simply bounce back. Resilience exists, yes, but resilience is not immunity. Every scar, even the invisible ones, has consequences. Perhaps one of the greatest tragedies is how often children blame themselves. A child doesn't think, "My parent is unable to love." They think, "I must not be lovable." Those childhood conclusions harden into beliefs that can last a lifetime. Think of how many adults walk around quietly convinced, "I am not enough." They strive endlessly, achieving, performing, pleasing, trying to fill a void they didn't create. Or they withdraw, convinced that staying invisible will keep them safe. These aren't random personality quirks. They're strategies born in bedrooms where no one came when they cried, in classrooms where their voice went unheard, in families where love was conditional. But here's the paradox once more. While ruined childhoods are tragedies, they often give birth to extraordinary strengths forged in silence, in pain, in survival. Many who endure such beginnings develop a heightened sensitivity to others' emotions. They become empathetic, compassionate, intuitive in ways others aren't. They notice subtleties because they had to. They protect others because no one protected them. These strengths are bittersweet. They grow from soil that should never have been so harsh. Yet they exist, and they shape people in profound ways. The path of healing begins not with erasing the past, but with reinterpreting it. With realizing that the beliefs carried since childhood aren't truths but conclusions, drawn by a child who had no other framework. The adult task is to gently untangle those beliefs and replace them with something more honest, more compassionate. To look at the inner child and say, "You are not unlovable. You are not too much. You are simply a child asking for what every child deserves." Healing is never linear. Some days feel like progress, others like being pulled back into the same old darkness. But even that is part of the process. The brain, through neuroplasticity, is capable of change at any age. The nervous system can learn safety again, even if it never knew it in childhood. And though no one can return and rewrite those early chapters, it's possible to write new ones in adulthood. Chapters of self-compassion, healthy connection, and deeper awareness. Perhaps the most powerful truth is this: the tragedy of a ruined childhood is not a life sentence. Yes, it leaves marks. Yes, it steals something sacred. But those who carry such marks often develop a depth of humanity that becomes their quiet gift to the world. They know what absence feels like, so they strive to offer presence. They know what silence does, so they choose to listen. They know what it means to feel small, so they go out of their way to make others feel seen. Maybe that's where meaning is found, not in pretending the pain never happened, but in transforming it, in turning the weight of what was lost into fuel for what can still be created, in realizing that while you can't change your beginnings, you can influence your endings. If you see yourself in these words, know this: your struggle is not proof of weakness, but proof of survival. Every difficulty you face is not a sign you're broken, but a reminder that you endured. And while you may never receive the childhood you deserved, you have the power to offer yourself something different now. Patience, kindness, forgiveness, to become for yourself the voice, the embrace, the safety you always longed for. The tragedy of a ruined childhood is real, but so is the possibility of redemption. Not by erasing the past, but by choosing again and again to live differently in the present. To honor the child you once were, not by silencing them, but by listening at last. Because in the end, life isn't about perfect beginnings. It's about what we create despite the imperfections. And sometimes, those who endured the darkest starts become the ones who carry the most light.